Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Enlightening Your Way. I'm your host, Nancy Lombardo. We are airing live here on the Lilydale Assembly official Facebook page and YouTube channel. I'm a year-round resident in Lilydale and the president of the Church of Living Spirit, which is an independent spiritualist church here in Lilydale. I'm a military veteran, retired police detective, fitness and yoga instructor, and wellness is my passion. This show is a combination of my many life experiences that features various topics and guests to help enrich one's mind, body, and soul on your pathway to healthy living. This is also airing on my Facebook page, Wellness with Nancy Lombardo, where my motto is protecting and serving your well-being. And today, my special guest is Reverend and Dr. Jan Dreshman and Sir Tibbetts Wick. Jan is originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and is a registered medium and ordained minister residing here in Lilydale. Jan has worked with people from all over the world and is recognized as an international trainer for crisis management and postvention. Jan has worked extensively with the Pennsylvania Department of Education, the Crisis Intervention Association of Pennsylvania, the National Organization for Victim Assistance, and the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. Jan has published several articles and is a co-author of several books, including Caring in Times of Crisis and Can You Ask My Dad What It's Like in Heaven? Jan is also a certified therapy dog handler. She and Sir Tibbetts Wick, who is a 2023, 24, 25 National Therapy Dog Superstar, have worked with media, libraries, schools, parks, bereavement settings, churches, and more. And Jan is also the owner of the Haven Cave Himalaya Salt Room here in Lilydale. And she says it is both a privilege and a pleasure to always be of service. And for everything about Jan, check her website, spiritmessagework.com. Welcome, you two.
Thank you, Nancy.
I'd love people to say Sir Tibbetts Wicks 3 times.
Tibbetts Wick. He has his tie-dye on. Can you see his tie okay?
Just adorable. He looks so darn cute. So darn cute. I love it.
Nancy.
Well, thank you for joining us, both of you. And thank you for dressing Mr. Wicks up. He looks adorable.
Thank you.
So, my first question, I know a lot about your professional background, but I do not know a lot about your mediumship background. And I'd like to know how that began with you.
It's a great question. Probably the mediumship, my family will tell you, goes back to about the age of 2.5, 3 years old. I was a child who would get up at the middle of the night and go to the bathroom and be a wanderer. And I started to see what I didn't know. I thought they were people in a rocker in my mom and dad's bedroom. And the next morning I would ask my mom about the people in the rocker. And she would like to know if they were big like her or small like me. And I would tell her they were big like her, and she wanted to know if they were friendly and nice. And I said yes. And then I would play with them, and she said it was okay to talk with them and to play with them as long as I didn't go up the steps with them. Now, we were on a second floor, and as a child, I couldn't conceptualize that, of course, because we were standing up at the top of the steps, and I didn't understand. Years later, she said she didn't want me to go up the steps of heaven with them.
Did she understand what was happening with you?
Yes, she did.
Was your mom a medium?
Not technically in terms of using the word medium, but she had, some people might refer to it as gifts. She had some seeings or insight, most definitely.
Mm-hmm. So how does that beginning lead you all the way to Lilydale?
Boy, the path to Lilydale. All through my life, The Path of Lilydale. It's a great title for a book. I started coming to Lilydale in the 1990s. I'm from the day that the Maury would come and the auditorium would be filled. Grandmother would own a Two Worlds and such. Other people that would do different types of workshops and that. Strawberry Moon. I'm not sure who on the grounds would remember that. That was a women's Native American ceremony that would go on in June of every year. And just started to come to Lilydale, try and understand it. A lot of the work that I did actually paralleled what was going on with Lilydale. I just didn't know that it was given a name. I never knew about our spiritualist community. We're the largest center for the study of spiritualism and also the largest spiritualist center in the world. And I did not understand all of that. And then I did. There aren't any mistakes. I'll say that. We don't get there by accident.
When did you become a spiritualist?
It's interesting because spiritualism has always fit with me in some way. I was talking with a friend today. It's the one religion. I said, when before Lilydale came to be, it was about going to picnic at the groves, and the families would come together, and it didn't matter what socioeconomic group you were from, what gender, what walk of life. We were free thinkers. We welcomed people. Probably officially was joining the churches. So probably in the maybe around 2003, 2004, where I officially decided to join a church. Spiritualism has always fit with me. And the beautiful part about that I always say is, we get to, as a registered medium or someone who works in the healing, we get to demonstrate the continuity of life where heaven and earth meet. And if we can give someone that hope of the possibility of seeing their loved ones again, whether they're people or pets, then that's a beautiful thing.
Beautiful thing. I totally agree with it. I forgot to make mention that this is my 2-year anniversary of doing this show. So you're my guest for my second anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I got to say, I think when me and you first met each other and I found out what you did and you knew what I did, that we both really had a mutual respect for each other, kind of doing the same work in different ways. I would say that. And in saying that, I would like to thank you for your service that you did with the people of Flight 427 and the 9/11 victims and their families.
Thank you.
During that time. And I would like to know how all of that experience impacted you.
Well, it definitely impacted me. One of the it's very poignant to talk about the subject because there's a lot of respect and reverence with that. I'm sure you understand that from the crisis and postvention work that you do. With the work, it was very intense work. No one expected planes to drop from the sky. No one expected to have our United States soil go under attack. When anything like that happens, it's catastrophic. So, when I look at the work, and the people I've been involved with, and that also includes their pets. I know that might sound silly for some, but truly they all count. When I look at the work, it changed me forever. How could it not? When we do any type of trauma work, anyone that's done trauma work or anyone that's been through a trauma, regardless of what it is, it could be a death. It might be in relation to an illness, a move. Trauma has different levels for different people. But I believe it changes us forever. And it could be a positive way. It's a critical life event. It depends on how we want to take that event and grow from it. And not just those two events. I wrote a book on crisis management postvention early on because I was working at a school district where we had 4 to 8 traumas a year involving death. 4 to 8 traumas a year involving death. And no one had a template for it. We called it Department of Ed. I worked with the Department of Education with Pennsylvania, what have you. And what we learned to do was work with crisis and postvention real quick. And some of the tried and true steps that we take in working with crisis or postvention is still applicable. It's something that doesn't fade away, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if you were practicing mediumship back then during that time, were you?
Yes, yes, I was.
Did that any way intertwine itself with your work?
It did at one point. I was able to, again, I talk a lot about this with reverence. When I had gone to the crash site, one of my dear friends who's a police officer, he and I had gone up and it was just us. And, I said to him, Ned, how do you do this? And he said, with reverence, Jan, with reverence. And I really understood that because part of what had come up through the ground, even a year after a piece of a watch, as odd as it sounds, a piece of a seatbelt, and Mother Nature, our earth, will hold those items until they lift back up. So what had happened about a year and a half after is that I was doing a read for a family member, and I had explained a few things to her about how the person was coming in and how they had passed, but very specifics. I'm trying to be respectful in relation to how I tell this, and one of them was in relation to how the steering wheel was, and all I said was that the steering wheel was like this. It wasn't round. And here it was a direct relation to someone on 427 that I'd never met, and she actually showed me some ID from that. Again, I'm trying to be as mindful as I can with this.
I understand
So
that.
that kind of put me in place on the power of the work that we can have, but also the healing that she could have from that experience. I had never met her before, had never seen her. That was the first time for us to meet. And that's what came about.
I mean, that time was so critical in our country. Like I remember when I was working as a police officer then, and I remember thinking I wasn't even sure if I was ever going to see my family again back here in New York, because we didn't know what was happening. We didn't know what was happening, what was going on. So many people affected by it, and I love that word, the way you put that, with reverence. I love that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that when 9/11 had happened, I was walking into an office, and it was out of school, and I looked at the secretary, and she said, Dr. Jan, there's an airplane crash. And as soon as I'd seen the first, I said, Miss Pat, I said, please get so and so on the line. We'll need this. I said, I'll be right back. And I remember walking to my office. I was calling my spouse, who was alive at the time, and letting her know that we were under attack. And I remember saying something to one of the staff members that was by me, and I just saw her on Friday, and she said, "You know what I remember?" She said, "Remember that time when 9/11 had happened, and you told me, but then you asked me to do something specific, and I knew that I had to do that." So, and part of that was getting the team ruling for crisis work. I don't think anyone knew what was going on at that time. I mean, I didn't know if I would see my spouse or my family again either.
Right. That's rough. I got to say, especially your line of work that you do, you went from working in that scenario, and then here comes along the pandemic. And I know you worked extensively with that, with so many people during the pandemic suffering from loneliness, depression, suicides, skyrocketed, suicidal thoughts skyrocketed. How have you self-cared throughout this whole process and dealing with all this?
Yeah, I think self-care is critical. Even if we go back to the work with going back to the days of Flight 427. And for those that are listening that don't know what that is, that was U.S. Airways that went over the international airport in Pittsburgh, PA. All 132 passengers and crew were killed on there. So because for a lot, or people that hear 9/11, for some it's just a story. They might not have been alive at that time. Self care has always been important to me. Part is prayer, part is meditation. Doing any type of work, I've trained for the state, I've trained nationally for ICISF, for NOVA, for the Pennsylvania Department of Ed. Last year, I was able to train people with the state. When we look at that, one of the things I talk a lot about is self care. What do we do to take care of ourselves? So it might be WALK tips. I'm spelling that right now, so we don't have to go anywhere. Another part is eating healthy, taking care of yourselves, working out. Um, for me, it's a lot of prayer. One of the things that I had done often was, and the store began to know me, and it was like a shopping store that had a restaurant. Anytime I had a crisis that was postvention, meaning we had a loss of life, I would call them in advance and say, hey, I'm coming in at this time. And no joke, I would walk into the door, they'd have a cup of coffee for me, and I would make my way all through the store for about 45 minutes, and then come back and sit before I would do any more driving. A beautiful people in my life. I've had such beautiful people in our world that have given kindness because of the type of work that we do, and I'm sure you've run into that too. going through for a coffee. We might be having a hard day. I'll never forget. It was a Starbucks worker, a young kid. He said, "Oh, honey, pull around. Looks like you're having a rough day." And when I pulled around and he had seen me, he's like, "This one's on us." He said, "I'm not sure what's going on, but this is on us." And he changed my life forever. And isn't that what we're supposed to do? I realized that I've been dealing with trauma, death, and grief for over 30 something years in my career. So, to do the work well, as much grief as there is, we also have to have joy and celebration. And the beauty about spiritualism is the belief of having an afterlife, whether one calls that heaven, spirit, the divine, the universe, eternity, to know that we get to be with our loved ones again, both people and pets. For me, that makes the grief process easier.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's hopefully makes it easier for many people for sure. So I know you've been very involved with the Children's Week for many years, and I know you work with children also. Why is this so important to you?
It's a good question. One, I'm probably a big kid, and I just don't realize the age the same as you. I think our kids are really important, and if there's a way that we can give back and help them build who they get to become, sometimes it's just a matter of planting seeds. Some of the work when I go out and I do public demonstrations out at Inspiration Stump or Forest Temple, probably the best way to get to me is if you bring a kid. If you bring a kid, you're probably gonna, the odds are better if you have a kid with you. Why? Because most people don't go to children to do this type of work.
Mhm.
And when I'm able to work with the kids and let them know that their loved one's okay, whether it's a pet or a grandma or a grandpap, and these are people that we don't know, we're giving that information to, and it changes their life. When I remember this summer, I was giving a quick message to a family, and I'm going through the pets that are coming through, and I stopped dead and I turned around and I said, "And there's a pet snake." And the dad looks and he's like, "Nope, nope." And the little girl says, "Yeah, there was, Dad. Don't you remember?" And like when this stuff comes to you, you have to trust enough to give it, because if we trust enough to give it, we know that it's going to give them hope and comfort and some laughter.
Don't we all get harped upon the trust?
Amen.
For sure. So let's go into Mr. Tibbs. So how did you find him? So
Well, that's an interesting story. So this will be a confession for everyone to hear. A year before getting Tibbs, my cousin Robbie sent me a just a little post, and it said, "Run as if you left the gates open." And it had a puppy that looked like Tibbs running. And I got a hold of my cousin Robbie, and I just saw him a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about this. And I said, "That's the type of puppy I want." He's like, "Well, all you have to do is ask God, trust the universe, and that'll happen." A year to the date, of that message that he sent is how Tibbs had come to our life. The one way that Tibbs came in a dream was that this is before getting him, is that he had come and he was with baby heifers. And in the dream, he's laughing and laughing. He's like, "I'm a baby heifer." And I'm like, "No, you're not. You're a puppy." And he's laughing and laughing, and the heifers are laughing. And he's like, "I'm a baby heifer." I'm like, "No, you're not. You're a puppy." And he's like, "I'm a baby heifer." I said, "No, you're not. You're my puppy. Just come home." And at that point in the dream, he jumped in my arms. And at that point, I woke up for the dream and wondered what was going on. And then it was about a week later, he came into our lives.
you saying baby heifer like cows?
Yeah. Yes.
That's so
Yeah. I don't think I've ever told that story publicly. So there you go.
that's a great story.
Yeah.
I
So
remember
he's my baby heifer.
I remember when you got him, was he always going to be a therapy dog?
No, no, that was pure by accident. So Tibbs is certified as a therapy dog through Therapy Dogs United. They're national. They're a beautiful, beautiful organization that was a mom and pop group. Actually, a mom who had started that. So it's truly grassroots. They didn't have any funding. They took the risk. And the first place they volunteered was at Edinburgh Manor, which is in Edinburgh, PA, who at the time, and we had to put these links together over the years, it was the first dog that I met, but I didn't remember who they were, Nancy, and they were there for my mother-in-law.
Oh,
So we didn't put all the names together till probably this past year.
So what got you interested in doing this?
Therapy dogs. I had a dog named Smudge, and she was a therapy dog. And this goes back to whenever my spouse Robin was alive. We had Smudge and Sparky. And at first, when we had gone for the testing, it's always the humans that get tested, not the pets. The pets are fine; they always pass flying colors. I thought it was a way to give back. I just didn't know how involved we would end up getting, and probably the same with Tibbs. Wanted to do some basic obedience work, what have you. And then that led to the possibility of him being trained as a therapy dog. And before he was even a year old, he actually technically had his certifications. We just had to wait for his birthday. As soon as he had turned a year, we had calls from actual several places that wanted to have him come and work with them.
What do you think it is about therapy animals that have such impact on people?
They're healers, unconditional love,
Oh,
no judgment. Doesn't matter uh, the age, the gender, the handicap, the challenge that we may have. Tibbs has gone into libraries, doctors' offices, oncology units, cancer units, and he's done amazing. One of our dear friends has a son who's multi-handicapped and nonverbal. Just give you a couple quick stories. And the stimulus of touching his hands, you cannot touch his hands. And Tibbs went right up to him. This was just natural, non-command. He just has a thing for Bennett. Went up and put his nose into Bennett's hand.
oh,
And we had no idea what was going to happen. And the mom said, "Hey, just let it go, let it ride." And then next thing we know, Tibbs is up. When he was laying down, Bennett was laying down. Tibbs went up, looked at us, went up, sat by him, and then laid down with him. So I just think animals know, whether it's someone who is challenged. On a non-command, when we were on the oncology unit, the cancer unit, there was a woman who wasn't doing well. We knew it'd be the last time that we saw each other. And Tibbs just, I was holding him, and you could tell that he wanted to lay with her. And she said, "Are you okay with that?" And I said, "Well, as long as the nurse is and you are." So we did that. And what he did, he just laid right beside her and provided her some type of comfort. So
it sounds
I can't teach him that.
Yeah, it's intuitive.
Very much so.
Hmm. You were saying before we went live that you've been doing a lot of bereavement work lately. What does that look like?
Bereavement work, it's very different because whenever we do the bereavement work, we also have to have days where it's a great day to do work. We started about a year ago at going to a funeral home at the request of a friend. And Tibbs was great. The funeral was great. He has tags, so he's legit, what have you. He's vetted. And when he's in that command, he's in a working mode. He has a certain collar that he wears and a certain tag. And he went right in, introduced him, and went right up and sat with the spouse, and just sat there with the spouse and with the daughter. And then other people would come and say hi to him, what have you. We also did that about a couple weeks ago. We've been in schools that have had a death by suicide with students, and Tibbs has done great. I feel that in some way intuitively he knows who to go to more, or who to be by. We had a student who had passed of cancer, and the part about that with Tibbs is that he was able to meet her beforehand because she wanted to eat sushi with him. Not that he ate sushi. We had chicken and rice. But he had known her before, and then to work with kids in the family. I can't control him. I can put him in the basic commands as a handler, because that's technically what people might see it as. I might be Dr. D or Reverend Dr. Jan or Dr. Jan, what have you. But when it comes down to it, it's still me being his handler. And there's some things that he just does so intuitively. When you hear people say, even from Lilydale, that come to visit they'll say, "You don't know how he's changed my life. I've been watching him for over a year, 2 years, and he's brought me joy because I've lost my pet." This past summer, we had two women from New Jersey that came, and they're like, "We came all the way to get a picture with Tibbs first," and they're like, "Can we have a picture?" I'm like, "Of course you can." So he's just he's different. Every pet is different in their own way. I'd have to say he's extraordinary. He's a healer.
Yeah, like
He's
that.
been to the
Mm.
healing temple. He goes to service, and it doesn't matter whether people are friends or not. He's going to go to whoever he needs to go to give that healing to.
Is it important to respect when he is working? When he does have his criteria, his stuff on, his
Yeah, and some people don't get it. I mean, he is adorable. I mean, look at him with his little tie dye. He's
face.
pretty cute.
Hi, boo.
Yeah, he's seeing you. He's pretty cute. And I'll give you a quick story of that he was in working mode. We were out in the public, and he was in working mode. This little boy was at a distance, and he said, "Is it okay if I say hi to your puppy?" And I said, "Oh, give me a minute," and use the commands on Tibbs to break him from his work. And I'll choke up on this one. This little boy, and they lay down on this floor. And what I realized was that the little boy had cochlears or hearing implants.
Oh,
And his dad said that he had never even approached an animal before. And to see Tibbs and him on the floor, it was like they knew that for each other, if that makes sense.
yeah.
So there's poignant moments. Most of the time, people are respectful. Other times, I have to remind him. I'll say, he's in working mode. He might have his vest that says "working," what have you. When we go to the library, he does pretty well. The kids read to him. When he's at Sunday school, Miss Courtney had said about one of the classes, he'll go to church. Why not? He goes to the church, his healing temple, what have you. And she said, when I asked the kids to sit up and be ready, none of them do, but Tibbs will sit up, and then the kids follow suit. I think I posted a video last week of him doing the hula with the kids.
That's fun.
They were doing the hula dance, and he did the same thing.
That is
So
hilarious. Oh my God. So how has Tibbs impacted your life?
I realized about a week and a half ago he owns me. So I didn't realize that. I was talking to a friend. I said, he stared me down. I got into the stare down for 5 minutes, didn't understand what was going on. And he's staring and staring, and I broke it. And I'm like, what is going on? And here I have these certain type of treats that were in a little box. And I'd left him on the counter, and he was staring me down for one. Already had his bedtime treats. So that's when I realized he owned me. He's changed my life for the better. When we lose a person or a pet, we might think that we can't love again, or we might close down, we might shut down. It's very traumatic. And when I had lost Sparky and then Smudge within a few months of each other, that was the last part of one part of my life. And I remember saying, I don't think I can do it again. Don't want to do it again. And I had a dear friend who would just send me these posts. And one of it was the story about Atticus, and he was a dog. And, the writer would put out these stories almost daily. And Donna would keep sending and sending and sending me stuff. And it was as if maybe she knew that my heart would open again. And I always say there's always room for love.
Mm-hmm.
There's always room. So he's changed my life for the better.
Yeah.
But he definitely owns me. So yeah, anything I buy, I'm like, it's for Tibbs. It's his. It's his.
Right.
So
what would you say to anybody who might be looking to have a therapy dog for themselves?
yeah, what I would suggest, most of the protocol, the pet has to be a year old, have basic obedience, but the adult or the handler, it could be a teen. They might have to be co-sponsored with a parent or guardian, but they go through classes also. I remember going through the classes with Tibbs. And Tibbs is great with commands. I mean, he really is. He will do the STOP, the DOWN, just in a heartbeat. And that's critical because it's also safety for him. gosh forbid if he would get loose and I have to give him a command, he needs to be able to stop. It's like a stop and drop,
Mhm.
stop, drop, roll. So I think if someone's interested in doing that and they want to make a difference in other people's lives, whether that's going to libraries, hospitals, coffee shops, radio stations, he goes everywhere. There's no holding him back. Shopping, I'll take him with me. If you can think about that, we get to have the opportunity to change lives for the better. And isn't that something that we need right now?
Mm,
To really soften hearts and to remember that we need to continue to treat people with kindness, however that kindness comes. It might come through the touch of him, where someone who's not very open will see him and just say, oh, do you mind if I pet your dog, or how's Tibbs doing? Some of his nicknames: Tibbs, Tibbetts, Tibbles, that's a new one. My niece called him Mr. Timbits when she first met him. I'm like, yep, we're gonna call him that. So he has names of affection for different people, which is
he answers to
beautiful.
it all.
He does. He's pretty good.
You were saying about him running. Remember, was that last summer when he took off in the stump? Remember? There goes Tibbs.
Yeah, Tibbs. Yeah, yeah. Yes, he did. He had a crush on Miss Callie. It was the one time he broke command on me, and I'll never forget. And I'm like, what is he like? SCOP, everything I'm trying. He was like a bolt of lightning, get all the way down at the end of Inspiration Stump. And there's Miss Callie on the golf cart. And I'm like, of course, always for a girl. Of course. Of course.
Yeah, that was hilarious. That was so funny.
Yeah, that's our tips.
I know you've written many articles and have co-authored books, but I got to tell you, one of my favorite titles, Can You Ask My Dad What It's Like in Heaven? I love that title.
Yeah, it's a great book. I was actually looking at bring it back up for reprint and rewrite. I had three little kids that were adopted from another country to a family here, and they had lost their dad. And the ages roughly, or the grades, I think, was maybe kindergarten and maybe first and second grade. And their dad had grape farmer died suddenly. These are three kids that didn't speak English at the point, all adopted, flown over here with the family, and they lose their adopted dad. And I worked with this family intensely, not just doing reads. I mean, we go beyond that. That it's they would bring me ice cream. That was an exchange. I would get squash, butternut squash. That was an exchange. And it was working with them to help them work through the trauma. They're never going to forget who their dad was or what happened. But, I remember at one point, Tavi looked at me and he said, okay, I'm done with all of that. When's my dad going to come home? And we really need to think about how kids think cognitively, even adolescents. The frontal lobe's not fully developed. So it doesn't happen until their 20s. They can't conceptualize and understand. They think they're going to be gone for a little bit and then come back. And to really work with those three kids in the attempt of them understanding that daddy's not coming back in the physical form. And that's hard for anyone.
Yeah.
But imagine a little kid. So, they were truly the inspiration for the book. But one of the things I use a lot is like when we think about our loved ones in heaven, people or pets who we put our hands over, it's like sending them an energetic email. And kids with cell phones get that. Oh, we're sending a little text message. We're sending them an email. Think about it. You and I might be thinking of each other. I text you or call you like, hey, I was just thinking about you. We can do that on this life force if we choose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Death can be complicated, and often I'll say, dying is ugly, but death is beautiful. And that's a lot to take in when you hear that the first time.
Right.
Because dying is ugly, but death can be beautiful in the sense that we get to have the hope and celebration of having eternity or being in heaven or spirit with our loved ones again.
Yeah.
Again, demonstrating the continuity of life where heaven and earth meet.
That's a beautiful story. I like that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So you're the owner of the Haven Cave Himalaya Salt Room. Why salt?
Why salt? I don't know. In all honesty, I started to get hooked into salt some years ago. Um, it's been used for healing for thousands and thousands of years. Think of the Dead Sea. People go to the Dead Sea for a reason. Salt has so many properties, and to make it as simple as I can, I work with both a scientist and a researcher, two different things. When if this is salt, okay, we have ions all over. Okay, ions touch the salt. We can't see it. This is how I explain it to kids. And it repurifies, it cleans, it reoxygenates the air to its purest form. So inside our Haven Salt Cave, you'll find probably over 1,500 pounds of pure harvested Himalayan salt. I don't use a halogenerator. I don't believe in that. That is a machine that takes salt, crushes, and spews it out. I like everything to be as natural as possible. The shape of the room is that of an octagon based on sacred geometrics. When we look at the land of Lilydale, we already know that's sacred. It lines up in alignment with the standing stones I have in the backyard. You stand in the standing stones during the solstices, all the planets align directly. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it. But some of the experiences with the salt cave is, I had someone who had come in. It was a young kid who was autistic or on the spectrum. I didn't understand what was going on. I just knew the kid came in. He was quiet. Parents didn't think he'd like it. By the end of his session, he's like, Jan, let me tell you what I experienced. Let me tell you what I did. That weekend, every time he saw me, he's like, hey, look, I'm taking pictures like you told me. He was nonverbal. The mom looked at me. She said, you don't understand. He doesn't speak. And my response is, he speaks now.
Yeah,
So, all types of healing has happened there. Any place can be a place of healing. And however that occurs, I don't care if it's the salt cave, if it's the healing temple, if it's sitting at the pet cemetery, if it's sitting at the beach, as long as someone can get a healing, amen. However that is, physical, emotional, spiritual, social, financial. But the cave, you've been there. It's a beautiful place. Something happens there. I've had people that all I say is I mind the time. You might want to do a before and after picture because you're going to see something different. And I'll come in and one group said to me, thanks for playing the drums. And I went, you're welcome. I don't have drums to play. Or they'll say, oh, we smelled the pie you were baking. I wasn't baking a pie. Or they'll say, we heard kids singing. And I'm like, that's awesome. I don't have kids in the house singing. So a lot of spiritual happenings, if you will, occur in there. And people have shared their own personal stories of being touched by loved ones, both people and pets there. It's a place of healing. If we went over all the properties of salt and, what the biochemical was for, I've two doctors in my life that are from India. And what they keep saying to me is, keep having all the salt. It's where the East meets West and West meets East. One of the things that we hope to do, there's a cancer center that we will probably be a volunteer spot for clients. I don't want to call them patients, for clients or people that use that center to come and to just have, I always say, time, space, and grace. And that's one of the places that they can get. If we take the time for ourselves, we have that space. And if we have that space, it goes back to that self-care.
Yeah.
Then we have grace.
Yeah. I like that. For
Thank
sure.
you.
So, can you explain to the people listening who might not understand what registered mediums do here during our regular season? I know a lot of people think they see the signs and the placards, but what all does it entail?
Being a registered medium, I take great pride in that. I mean, I've watched the number of registered mediums go from close to 70 something down to 60 something down to 30 something, and the numbers keep dropping. Some of it is due to attrition. The other part is due that we're losing our elders. This is where I get emotional. So when we look at that, being a registered medium, for me, I take a lot of pride in it. There's a testing process, at least during the day when I went through, that was pretty rigorous. It was not easy. For me, it's about being of service. It's not about making appointments. Well, I make some appointments, yeah, maybe. But what A couple things. So many services during the season as a registered medium. One has to do Monday night circles. One has to do. If anyone has seen me in Lilydale, I hit almost every service I can. Why? That's what I was taught by the elders. When I talk about the elders, registered mediums that have passed on, have passed into heaven or spirit. That's what I was taught. Go out and see if they need help. You show up. You report for duty. I think I'm doing a couple of, I think Tuesday nights for Adventures of Mediumship this summer. Sometimes registered mediums may be teaching classes. I've done force and fairies, shamanism, all different coffee and conversations, all different types of classes. But for me, and even for Tibbs, it's really about being of service. It's not about the money. I know sometimes people think, oh, well, they charge us. It's a donation. You know what? That doesn't matter to me. What matters is being able to give someone an experience and the hope. Again, I go back to the, demonstrating the continuity of life where heaven and earth meet. And whether it's a child or an adult, maybe it's someone who never believed, maybe it's someone who's atheist, agnostic, and we give enough evidence and a message from their loved one that they know that's their loved one, hook, line, and sinker. They
Yeah.
know. We don't. All I do is say the prayer, give the message, and pray it goes. And they have that experience. We've changed their life forever. And isn't that what we're supposed to do? I always say when you come through our gates, something spiritual, mystical, magical happens. I don't know what it is, but something does. And hopefully it changes lives forever. It's changed mine. I'm still there.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
still there.
You're right. Very true. And I can't tell you how many times in the summer I'll drive by and see you sitting out on your porch just talking with people. I mean, I see you do that all the time.
I have so many people that have never sat on a porch before. I'm like, what? You never sat on a porch? That's a Pittsburgh thing. We sit on porches. And I had some people, I'm like, let's just go get a coffee, grab a chair up here and just sit. They're like, what do you do? I'm like, wave to people. They're like, what else do you do? I'm like, maybe play a board game like Rummy Cube or cards. They're like, what else do you do? I said, just be quiet and mind the time, space, and grace.
I love that. My last question for you. So, what is one of the most important things you have learned on your spiritual journey?
Might have to do a combination on that. Unconditional love, big one. Forgiveness, kindness, and I don't think there's one order for all three of those. We look at unconditional love. Doesn't matter who you are or what you are, person or pet. When we look at forgiveness, we've all been wronged. We've all been wronged, and sometimes forgiveness might be difficult. Sometimes the forgiveness is for us to heal, and then for that kindness, that to really believe in, that we get to go out and make a difference in the world. One word can change someone's life forever, for the better. And to me, that's what it's about, especially now in these times. We hear a lot of negativity and a lot of challenges is what I'll call them. And if we can be the place where we start ourselves, you and me, Tibbs, where we get to make a positive difference in someone's life, I have to trust they're going to carry that on in the best way.
Yeah. Well, you and Tibbs have made a big difference in many lives. You're doing great work.
Well,
Looks
thank
like
you.
you finally started relaxing, huh?
He's right here. He's ready. Don't let him fool you.
He's ready. Well, I thank you so much for joining me this evening, Jan.
Thank you so much, Nancy. A pleasure and privilege.
To see you guys driving around in the golf cart.
You got it. Neighbor Nancy, that's who we go to. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us here this evening. Please join me again in 2 weeks for another episode of Enlightening Your Way. Please visit this page often, the Lilydale Assembly official Facebook page, for everything happening in Lilydale. We got events. They already have the summer catalog out. All the summer workshops are out online. So sign up, come see, come visit. Come see Tibbs, come see Jan, come see me, come visit us here in Lilydale. We'd love to have you. My name is Nancy Lombardo. My Facebook page, Wellness with Nancy Lombardo. Instagram, nancy.k.lombardo. And what's yours, Jan?
Spiritmessagework.com.
Spiritmessagework.com. My name is Nancy Lombardo. I am protecting and serving your well-being. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much.